Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just take you through the basics of the program so that you get a good understanding of it. Everything's got to work on income and expenses, and then there's some reports. So Money Rules works on regular income. So this is all known income. It is a proper cash flow management program. So the first thing we look at is Sam and Sally's income. So here's Sam's income, it's $3,300 per month, and everything is calculated monthly. The starting date is a date that it's entered, and the ending date is the date that we know the salary is going to stop coming in. Same with Sally's. Sally's is $1,150, although hers is fortnightly. It's now calculated on monthly. Again, the date that it starts and the date that it's going to end. We can see they've also got interest income from a bank account. There's child support from the government and family allowance as well. So here's their total monthly income of $6,300. What we're going to do then is go and have a look at some of their expenses. So they've got their primary property, it's worth $450,000. $300,000 mortgage on it, they pay it monthly, that's their monthly payment. 3.95% interest rate, number of payments, they've only just taken this out, so they've got 30 years or 360 payments. Based on monthly, it's a variable rate, and it's with which bank? Any editing needs to be done, we just click on the pencil and make the changes. Then we'll have a look at their personal debts. And as you can see from their personal debt, they've got a car loan, they've got a couple of credit cards and a couple of personal loans. The original amount of money that they borrowed, this is the date on which the information is entered, and this is the current balance as at that date. This is the interest rate for those loans and what their monthly payments are. And we also give them an option to be able to choose a priority, which one's most important to them. So that tells us something about them. And to Sam and Sally, 10 is the highest, that's the most important. They want to get rid of this credit card, so we can have a look at that. If we look down at the bottom, you can see it mirrors exactly the same as up above, and what it's telling us is they've got a total of $53,000 in debt. They're going to pay $16,500 in interest over a 98-month period for a total of $69,890. So let's go and have a look at their regular expenses. So here are their regular expenses: utilities, transport, fuel, education, medical, and personal. And you're going to find that personal is the place that you're going to do a lot more work in. The pie chart here, this has been designed for women because it gives a better overview and a breakdown of expenses. We can see here $1,730 for food, which is up here. Men look at the bottom line number. Women like to look at an overall picture. So that's why it's been designed in that fashion. And the whole program has actually been designed and developed for women, but men also get to enjoy it when they see it. On the left here, we've got the traffic lights. Red being danger, obviously. This is non-discretionary expenses. This is money that needs to be earned and debts and expenses that need to be covered. Otherwise, something will be turned off and taken away. The non-discretionary is the amount of money that they decide to spend on whatever. But we can see that they've gone overboard, and they're actually spending an extra 8.74% of their total income. And you'll remember $6,300 was their income. Well, 8.74 is $667 over spending. So they can only do that in one way, and that's with credit. So they need to move the green from the bottom to the top. The green is good, and we need to get the green to the top, and we'll show you how to do that shortly. The saving report, and this is the one that people will generally rush to have a look because they get a pretty good overview of their whole situation. Remember, we had $53,000 in debt, $16,000 in interest, and a total of $69,000 that they were going to pay over 98 months or 8.17 years. We haven't selected a strategy as yet, so we've not saved them any time, but we know that they're going to be out of debt in 8.17 years. We come down here, here's their mortgage at $300,000, 3.95% interest over 360 payments or 30 years, and they're going to pay $212,000 in interest on top of the $300,000 they borrowed for a total of $512,000. But here's the interesting part. We know they're going to be out of debt here in 8.17 years. They haven't had access to this money because they've been paying it off the debts. If we can show them how to take that very same money and save a lot of money, I'm sure that they're going to be interested. So take that money after 8.17 years, drop it on top of their mortgage, and instead of going for 30 years, they're actually going to be out in 16 and a half years. Instead of paying $212,000 in interest, they're only going to pay $121,000 in interest. So we've just saved them $91,500 in interest, and you saved them 13 and a half years. Now, anybody who can't see the advantages in that is obviously not looking. But we can do better than that, and we'll find out how. Let's go back and see how we can fix up their mess with their overspending. So the first place we'll go into is their regular expenses. And within their regular expenses, you're going to find most of the action takes place in the personal spending. This is where people have no idea where they're spending their money. So we can see that haircuts, that Sally is spending $60 a month on haircuts. She feels that she can probably stretch that out to every 2 months rather than each month. It's on a month-by-month basis, so it's going to be totally up to her. Sam has committed to finally quitting smoking, so that's coming back to 0. And then when we look at clothing, Sally's setting aside $50 per week for clothing. She's going to change that to monthly. When we look at drinks and alcohol, Sam is spending $50 per week on drinks. So what he's decided to do is cut that back by half, and he's going to make that fortnightly. And the last one in there is they are spending $100 a month putting aside for a holiday, which they can't afford in any case. So we've convinced them to leave that for now and come back to it at a time that they can afford it. So if you have a look over here, you can see we've already got some green to the top. We've gone from the bottom and we've gone up to the top. But we can do even better than that. We happen to know that within the food section, Sam has been spending $100 a week on buying his lunch. So Sally said, you know what, you can buy your coffee at work, but I'm going to make your sandwiches for you. And the other place that they're spending money is $100 a week on takeaway. So what we've said is, let's just modify that and make that $150 once a month, and you go out and really have a good night out. So they've agreed to do that. So we're going to leave it at that, but let's have a look at what's happened. We've gone to 14.75 or $930 positive. So we've gone from a negative of 8.7% or $670 up to 14.75 or $930. And another place that we can go and make a change is in their debts. We're going to select a strategy. Now, as financial planners, we would automatically say pay the highest interest debt first, whereas some other people would say pay the smallest amount first because it's a psychological win. But we've got a number of different strategies that we can run through here, but we need to be able to show them so that they understand for themselves. So in the strategy here, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the list. Snowflake is the lowest balance, and you'll see the lowest balance is $1,000. Keep an eye on what happens to the interest and the months to pay off. So we'll click on that Snowflake, which will put the $1,000 to the top, and there's the $1,000 to the top, but we've gone from $16,000 down to $10,127, and it's over 36 months. So that's a pretty good deal. What about highest interest first? And that's gone down, dropped by about $80 to $10,082, still 36 months. What about the order that it's been entered into the table? 10,930, so it's gone up, still 36 months. So we won't use that one. Let's look at the highest priority first, which was theirs over here. 10,459, it's gone back up again, still 36 months, so we won't use that. And what about reversing that and making it the lowest priority first? Dropped it a fraction, but not enough. So the best of the whole lot was, in fact, the highest interest rate first. So now let's go and have a look at what that does in the saving report. So in the saving report, you'll remember that we had $53,000 and $16,500 in interest, $69,000 to pay out in total over 98 months or 8.17 years. But we're down to 3 years and we're saving them $6,500 in interest, and we're saving them 5 years. That's not a bad result. If we take the money that's available after that 3 years and drop it on top of the mortgage, instead of paying out over 30 years, they're out of debt in 9.33 years. That is a fantastic result. Instead of paying $212,000 in interest, they're going to be paying $67,500 in interest. They're going to be saving nearly $145,000 in interest, and they're going to be saving just under 21 years. That's not a bad result at all. So as you can see, instead of paying $212,000 interest here, which equates to this one, they're only going to be paying $67,000 in interest, which equates to this. Instead of paying for 30 years, they're only going to be paying for under 10 years. That's not a bad result. As a client, I think I'd be very happy with that if you brought that to me. But let's go and have a look at a yearly balance report. Now, what the yearly balance report does is it says, here is the conventional method of paying out your mortgage, $299,000 at $300,000 when it started. And at the end of 9.5 or 10 years, they would still owe $236,000, but they're down to zero because they used the Money Rules program. Here it is in a graphical. Here's the 30-year mortgage term, but the green represents the Money Rules method. So that looks like a pretty good result. As a financial planner, I know you're going to enjoy seeing the future value report. And what the future value report does is paint a very long-term picture for your client, which will cement you as being able to give them a picture of what the future could look like if they knuckle down. So what we're saying to them is you're going to save $151,000 in total in interest. You're going to be debt-free 21 years ahead of time. And if you take the money that you're saving and invest that, you can do very well. So let's have a look at that. Here's the available surplus. Here's the mortgage payment. When they're both added together, we're talking about $3,600. They're going to use that same money over the 20 years at the mortgage interest rate of 3.95% as a rate of return. We look at that, you can see that the red section here is the original mortgage term of 30 years, but we've got them out of debt back here in under 10 years when they would have still owed $240,000. If they take exactly that same money that they're now being able to save and invest that into a retirement plan, investment plan, whatever it is that they decide to do, they could actually end up with $1.4 million. And that is at 3.95%. But just as an example, that's not a bad rate of return. And most super funds are actually doing at least double that, if not better, at the moment. They turned around and they said, you told us that if we stop spending today so that we could live tomorrow like most won't be able to, then what we want to do is we actually want to put aside $2,000 per month over that same 20 years at that same interest rate. What will that do? And that will actually give them in the vicinity of $783,000. So it's $1.4 million or $783. Go back to that asymmetrical graph that I showed you. Most people retired with $130,000, but half of those people had less than $60,000, and 50% of the population on average had mortgage debt by the time they got to retirement. This is where most people are living. They have zero by the time they get to retirement. But because you've been able to show them how to save their money and invest it for the longer term, they're not going to be a burden on the financial system of the country. They're not going to be reliant on Social Security like 36% of the population or 70% of the population. So overall, this is an excellent outcome. This is something that you should be taking to your clients and making them sign up for. There's no reason why somebody seeing this wouldn't be so enamored with their future financial plan. And the good thing is, you're not responsible for this, they are. But as a financial planner, I can talk to you about how you can work with your clients to do this on a more formal basis. So let's go back to the webinar, and I'll catch up with you in there.